a pretty theoretical topic. It's in its infancy, but it's super interesting, and that's quantum biology. And so, the basics of quantum biology, first thing you have to understand is its interactions on the quantum level, so atoms, electrons, that kind of thing, and how they impact biological processes. And this has implications in a variety of different areas. So the major one is simply understanding the origin of life on the planet, understanding all of biology. And beyond that, relating to the previous presentation actually, quantum computing. You can learn a lot from nature and how it does quantum processes. So first I'm just going to introduce a couple of these processes to you. So the first one is quantum tunneling. Now, this stuff's going to sound a little weird because it doesn't follow the laws of classical physics, but you're going to have to kind of bear with me and just take my word for it. So the first thing is that on the quantum level, particles behave as both particles and waves at the same time. Right? It's pretty weird. But on top of that, where they're located in space has to do with probability. It's simply probability. The chance that the particle is going to exist here versus there. And so this is actually illustrated in this drawing right here. So the highest probability exists in the middle, so you'd expect the particle to be there. However, there is still a chance that it can exist on the far left or right, whichever side that is for you, past this physical barrier. And so what this means is that, theoretically, particles have a percentage chance of teleporting past the physical barrier. Yeah, teleporting. And so then, okay, that brings me to the second point. So quantum entanglement. This is basically an intrinsic relation between two particles. So if one thing is true about this particle, the opposite will be true about the other one. So this typically is denominated with spin up and spin down. Now, to move on to a couple of examples of how quantum processes affect biological ones. So one of these ways, the most important process in biology on the planet, photosynthesis. So I'm going to have to kind of go through the step-by-step process of how this works. So first, we know that plants get their energy from the sun, and they get the light, and they use that for their own purposes. But how does it get exactly from the sun to the plant? Okay, so first, the photon comes from the sun, it hits the leaf, and it hits a chlorophyll molecule. Now, this ejects an electron, which then has to get to a place called the reaction center, in which it can actually be useful in the photosynthetic reaction. But to get here, there's about a gazillion different paths it can take. And if these electrons took all these paths, they would lose almost all of their energy in the process. So, that doesn't really work. But it's been found that over 99%, or rather, the efficiency of this process is over 99%. So how does this happen? Well, it's thought that in combination with using quantum tunneling to jump between chlorophyll molecules on the way to this reaction center, something called the quantum walk occurs. Now, it's something like this, and it's based on the theory that these particles can exist, again, based on probability, in more than one place at one time. And so essentially what happens is there's a test run in which all possible paths are taken by these electrons, and the most efficient, the best path that could be taken is identified, and then that is taken. And that's how photosynthesis has to work in order to be efficient. And so this is just kind of like an illustration of that. The best path, of course, is the most direct one, but all these other paths are also possible. Now, the second example of these quantum processes in biology is birds. So we know that in the winter they navigate south, right? They migrate. But how do they know how to do this? What's their internal compass? And so this is where the quantum biology comes in. And again, these are all theories. They have evidence, but they're not completely proven. And so it's thought that in some birds, the photon, again, enters the bird's eye. And it'll hit a molecule, and it'll shoot up one of that molecule's electrons. Now, we're going to forget about that electron, but we're going to note the vacancy, the electron vacancy. So then an adjacent molecule has a pair of quantum entangled electrons on it. Remember that intrinsic relation between two molecules? Or two particles, rather? So it gives one of those entangled electrons to the vacancy in the first molecule. And basically what happens here is now you have what's called a radical pair. And this radical pair is extremely affected by magnetic fields, so like the Earth's. So that means if the bird changes its orientation in the Earth's magnetic field, the states of this radical pair will be changed. And because this radical pair plays a role in chemical reactions in the bird, this means that the rate of reaction and the products of the reaction are going to differ based on the bird's orientation. So, okay, what does that mean? This means that a different signal is going to be sent to the brain of the bird And so it's going to get, based on its orientation, a different signal. But then, how does it use that different signal to navigate? So again, this is purely a theory, but it's thought that something like this happens in the bird's vision. And so the dark bars are where the bird doesn't want to go, and so these dark bars are essentially directing it towards the light, and that's the direction that they need to fly in order to migrate. So this is just two quick examples of how these quantum processes have a huge effect on biology, but the fact is that we haven't discovered nearly all of them, or not even close to all of them. I, in my research, found mostly 3. So I just shared 2 of them, so you're already 2/3 of the way there for most of them. But other processes could include, or other impacts could include human consciousness, the origin of life on Earth. These are huge questions, and they can possibly be answered by quantum interactions regarding biology. What's next? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thank you.